Hello everybody, we're going to start our third lesson today on creating our balloon car. And with this, we're going to pick up where we left off. Last time we left off, we created and grouped the base. So we have the good portion of the parts necessary for the base. And we created two of the cylinder holes, which H-O-L-E, meaning that it's going to turn into a hole in our project later on. So we have to align those in the car today first. And then once we get those aligned properly and we get them so we cut out the section for where the axles are going to go, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to create the part that will hold the tube for the balloon. So we're going to go through that stage as well, or at least start it off. The first thing we're going to do today is we're going to start off by selecting one of these cylinders. So I'm going to click on it. All right, when I click on the cylinder, you can see it highlights it, and we have our X and Y axis lined up there. Before we go any further, we're going to change our measurements on here. What we need to do is to use midpoints. Right now, we're set up to use endpoints. So if we kind of zoom in on this a little bit more, you can see that these parts line up with the corner of the cylinder. So what we want to do is we want to get it so it lines up with the center of the cylinder. And to do that, again, we're going to go to this circle with the three lines. And when we put our arrow on it, it lights up and it says use midpoint. We want to use the midpoint of the object rather than the endpoint. So we click on that, and you'll see if it click on that, and it changes to use endpoint, and then it lines up with the center now. So what we have is we have now lined it up with the center of this object because we want to center those in these two areas. Now, we have three axes we have to move. We have our x-axis, we have our y-axis, and we also have the z-axis. And the z-axis is what comes up off the top of the work plane. It's how it raises up vertically. When we go over here, we can see we have two numbers, that 0.11 and that 0.11, which give us the circumference or the diameter. Each of those is a diameter for the circle. And then we have this number right here. And this number, 0.055, is the z-axis and how we control that. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to change that number to 0.15, which is just going to raise us up off. Now you can see it's kind of raised up. One's still flat, one's raised up a little bit off the work plane. Just raises that up off the work plane a little bit. After we get done with that, we'll now change our x and y. We can start with x, and we're going to change the x, once again, to 0.15. And then we're going to change the y to 1. Now, the reason why we're going to change the y to 1 is because of the fact we're on midpoint, and our length of this is 2, so this is lining up an inch back. So what we want to do is we want to move this down. So the midpoint at 1 inch, it would be the middle of this. This is 2 inches, this is 2 inches. So we're going to type in 1. And as you can see, it brings it into the center of our TinkerCAD project right here, our balloon car project. Once we get that one done, we're going to do the same thing to the other one. So once again, we're going to click on it. Check to make sure we're using midpoints, which we are. We're going to go over here to this 0.055, click on that, and change that to 0.15, which is going to be the z-axis, raising it up. Then we're going to change the y-axis to 1. That'll bring it down. And now we just need to change the x-axis. And the number for the x-axis, which will put us in the center of the back of the balloon car, is going to be 3.85. When we hit enter, you'll see that lines up. So now it should be even in the center of both of those. When we get that done, we're going to group this as one object. So once again, put your arrow more up towards the top left on the work plane. Click and drag down. Once everything's selected, we go up here to the group icon. Once again, you can see where I'm pointing to. That's the group icon. Click on that. And when we click on that, what you'll see is we have this area cut out for the axle to go through. All right. Now, we're going to start creating the last part we're going to need for this base of the balloon car, the chassis of the balloon car. We're going to create the part that's going to hold the tube that will hold the balloon that will power the balloon car. So to do this, we're going to start by clicking on a box. We're just going to drag this thing out here and drop it. Now we have some dimensions we're going to change this to. The first one is the width. And actually the width we don't have to change because the width is already at 1 inch. And if we remember from that drawing we did or we worked with at the beginning of the project, this part was 1 inch. The depth is going to be 0.5 or ½ inch. And then the last part here is going to be, oops, let me change this back to use endpoints. Sorry. Sure we get that, so we use endpoints or it'll start to float in the air on us. This number right here is going to be 0.48. All right, decimal 0.48, which is a little bit smaller than a ½ inch. So now when we have that part done, we're going to drag and drop another cylinder that's going to become a hole. And this time we're going to rotate this 90 degrees. So to rotate it 90 degrees, we're just going to go to that arrow that's straight ahead of us. We're going to click on that. We're going to change this to 90. And now we can see we have that moved around a little bit different. And that's where we're going to leave you today. Let's get this done. And then in the next class, we can finish up this part of the project and have this assembled. And this is the part that can be 3D printed. All right. Hopefully you guys do well with this. If you do have any questions or you need help with anything, make sure you shoot me an email. Or if we really need to, we can have a Google Meet. Usually most days at 2 o'clock work well for me. So good luck with this, and we'll see you in the next video.